Hello everyone, welcome to week 3 of our competitive marketing strategies class. I'm Patty Wiggin. I hope you all are doing well in your class. I know it's intense. I like to say rigorous, so I hope you can keep up with all the thrilling and exciting activities that we're doing each week. I'm going to talk about chapter 5 now, and the key description of the chapter is on segmentation. And segmentation is, in my opinion, super interesting when it comes to deciding which segment of the market you might focus on depending on your product and your sort of portfolio of products. When I worked in marketing before, I've already told you I worked in the diagnostics division of a pharmaceutical company, and we had several different segments that we had to position and sell our products to and market our products to, because I worked in marketing. But one of the first things that the chapter describes is all of the different aspects that a person goes through when considering a purchase. And I know our book is really more on the traditional focus of marketing from a more traditional standpoint, but there's still, all of these things really, these factors still apply. And if you think about yourself, if you're in the market for a big ticket item purchase. Let's say you want to purchase a new television because your other television has completely died, if you even use a television. But let's say you do that. There are lots of steps that you're going to think about as a user. And the first one is that we have, as consumers, we have wants and we have needs. And the two sometimes can get interchanged. But at first, what's going to happen is you're going to have some sort of a need in your life. Television is not an absolute, but you're going to have some sort of need for a way to watch your favorite game show or whatever it might be if it's not online. But the steps really start out with marketers needing to be aware that customers will move from having a need to eventually it moving into a want. But at first, you have to be able to understand what all those needs are and understand the demographic of the person that you're trying to sell your product to. The other thing that will happen, and this is a natural progression, is if you're a purchaser, you're going to start looking for information about what it is that you want to purchase. You look at all the different features of televisions. You might have a friend or a neighbor who has a certain type of television, or maybe it's your parents or your relatives, and you think about what that information is and how it's going to fit into your decision making. You also then need to look at, okay, if it is a certain television that I need, do I really need a big one, or do I just want a really large TV? So these types of things move as the user gets more information. It's how the consumer moves through the process, and it's how marketers need to be aware. Because at some point you decide to purchase, and maybe again it's influenced by something that your family members are doing. But in many cases, a lot of times we see on Instagram or we see on other social media sites some person that is a celebrity figure that manufacturers and marketers are trying to use to affect the decision. And then there's the post-purchase aspect. Is the person and the consumer really happy with what they've purchased? Did they feel like they made a good decision, or are they having some dissonance in terms of how the product performs with what they thought they wanted to do? But because there are so many different markets out there between consumer markets and business markets, this is a complicated issue for any manufacturer and any marketing team. Now, regarding segmentation, there are even many steps as marketers move through when they decide to segment and decide to look at different segments for purchasing or for selling and marketing their products. First, you look at what all the segments are, and I talked about this before. We had single-use drug testing markets that we sold our products to. Those might be in clinics. We had medium-sized users that would use instrumentation to do their testing. Sometimes automated, sometimes not. And then we would have high volume users in hospital labs or in other just general laboratories that were cranking through a lot of tests. So you look at the segments and you have to determine what's going to be the most profitable to you, but lots of different factors go into that. So eventually you target a particular market, and once you're in that market segment, you have to think about who the competitors are. So how would you be positioning and marketing your product compared to the competitors in the market? So some segments can be generally very large, and that's a big consideration. Sometimes with those large segments, there might be, in terms of high volumes of users, there might be higher competition there. It could be that you want to look at a smaller segment because it's a niche, you have a perfect product for that, you understand the customer's needs, and that's a better way for you to target. But overall, there could be markets that are something that a large firm could successfully use or go towards and market their products to. And so you want to be looking at all of those different factors. Another issue is, let's say you have several different products in your product line. Are you going to be cannibalizing one of the other products? And I use the example here of beauty care products or hair care products. That's an issue for manufacturers to consider. Now, there could be markets where you are selling something that basically is the same sort of product to the whole entire market. So that's called mass marketing. You could have, in that case, then one entire program that deals with whoever it is that's going to buy your product. And you think of things like batteries. There's not a whole lot of differentiation in terms of batteries that people would purchase, and so the people that are marketing to that type of mass market would use a single message typically. There could be lots of competition though, so you might need to talk about how your batteries are so much better than other batteries. And you think about the bunny that you see on TV, that's one way to get users and consumers' attention. But then, as we talked about before, there are differentiated markets, and in that case, then you're going to be doing more of the segmentation. And in that case also, you would be looking at things where you could actually engender some brand loyalty. You could engender more profits depending on the segment that you're focused on. For instance, it could be that you're trying to sell hair care products to an older population that has more money to spend, and therefore your products could be higher priced, but you're differentiating your products based on that particular segment. Now, the assumptions with mass marketing is that all customers have similar needs in the market, and you can reasonably meet those needs with however it is you're going to be positioning and branding your product. And I thought about paper clips, I thought about batteries. There's probably other things that fit in the mass market that you purchase all the time, and you don't necessarily differentiate from one paper clip to the other. Now, there are different ways that organizations can do their segmentation and the way that they market. So for instance, we may have talked about some of these before, but they apply particularly in this conversation. If you're selling life insurance and you're selling or pension plans, you would customize a program for an individual company. That doesn't necessarily mean that you create a product only for them, but let's say in certain size companies, you're going to have a type of product, a type of life insurance package that would be branded or marketed towards those particular customers in that segment. There is also a way that you would be selling a product on a mass scale, but you can customize it. And I really like Zara as an example of an organization that sells to the mass public but customizes. And I think I may have even talked about this before. Customers come into the store and they have representatives that talk to customers about their needs or their interests in certain styles, and they can turn around their fashion outputs a lot more quickly because of some of their supply chain capabilities. But Zara very often will be on the short end for turning out some new shirt or some new trend that customers are asking for, whereas other manufacturers can take longer. You also, for permission marketing, you also allow marketers to send you emails when you subscribe to their website when you're purchasing something. A lot of times they'll ask you to sign up, and in that case, what's happening is they are able to market to you specifically because you gave them permission. Now, how do you understand what all the segments are about? I think we talked about purchasing data in last week's video, but what happens is there's lots of different ways that manufacturers can target and look at the different aspects of their purchasers or their consumers. So they might take a look at geographic information about customers. They might take a look at demographic information. So are you selling to younger purchasers? Are you selling to older purchasers? Are you selling to retired purchasers? Are you marketing to a certain income? So all of these types of things are ways that organizations can look at segments, understand what the typical needs, and they do this by buying data. They also could do it, as we talked about before, by doing first-hand survey research with certain data. A lot of times they try to get you to take surveys through their email marketing. But you also can look at what the values or the lifestyle of the user is. So for instance, if you're trying to sell housing to an over 55 group, what is it that those types of people need? What are the types of amenities? What are the typical price ranges depending on where you are that you're marketing these products? And you could even co-market with some other manufacturer, maybe it's hospitals or other types of services that are in the area that are close to your over 55 housing development that you're trying to market. But you can also take a look at people's actual behavior. How often do they use this product? Or is it seasonal? Why do they buy it? Is it something that has an appeal to them in terms of their status and other things? Now, one thing that's really typical that manufacturers kind of do that's just obvious segmentation is to take a look at what the age of the consumer is. And of course, this has to do with, in this slide, this has to do with what stage a person is in their life. Are they unmarried? Have they moved into being a couple with someone? Do they actually then get married? Do they start having babies, et cetera, all the way up to there's only one person left in the house, that person is elderly and is no longer married, et cetera. So of course that's one obvious way, but manufacturers look at the lifestyle or the life cycle of the person that they're selling their product to. Now businesses might segment. If they're selling to another business, they might segment differently. And again, all of this information's in your textbook. But they might be looking at how to sell to another type of organization. Let's say you're selling glass. You would consider different manufacturers for a business-to-business segmentation and selling and marketing to. You would sell glass to people who create windows for housing. You might sell glass to people who do framing, picture framing, etc. You're also going to segment by the type of organization that you're marketing to. For instance, plastic manufacturers might segment and market their products to people who coat some of their paper products with plastic, like milk cartons, etc. So there's different ways that manufacturers would need to market and consider the segments that they would sell their products to if it's on from a business to business. You also might be looking at segmenting in terms of the relationship and the intensity. So it may be that you've got particular people that are absolutely dedicated to one segment. You've got particular sales reps that sell to not to hospitals, but like liquor salespeople sell to hotels, and you have a dedicated team for that. And then you would market typically in a different way than you would maybe to a liquor store or a grocery store. But the bottom line is the manufacturers need to figure out what is part of the decision-making process in the purchase and why customers would want to buy something and why they would not want to buy it. Now, let's think about different types of products and how manufacturers might segment for those particular products. Like, how would you segment your branding for if you're a company that's selling vitamins? And you already hear this on television all the time. You hear about the over 55 person that's buying a certain type of vitamin. You hear about vitamins for children, gummy bears, etc. So you think about those types of brandings. You're going to have lots of different options. One of the things you're going to do this week, I believe, is you're looking at the Shark Tank pitches that are in a link that I put on one of the assignments, and you just take a look at how these people that have created a new product have segmented and tried to focus on a particular segment for selling their products. And the products are fun because they have to do with, I think one of them is crazy sweaters, like a crazy Christmas sweater. Another one is cups for children or babies. So you've got examples here of how innovators and entrepreneurs have segmented for selling their products and marketing their products. But if you have a wide assortment of products, you're going to attract a wide range of customers and segments, and companies don't necessarily shy away from that. They find economies of scale in other ways when they're trying to manufacture in order to successfully market. So target marketing strategies could be that you're looking at one particular segment that matches really well with your capabilities. Maybe it's a brand fit that's really great. And we talked about liquor manufacturers with hotels. So there's natural synergy there. But in some cases, if there's no synergy, it might even be a great market potential, but you just don't find something where you can fit your products to the needs of the customers. And again, remember, we talked about some of the basic things that marketing does is to differentiate based on some kind of appeal of the product, or to market and brand on cost or price factors. So there are some areas where a single segment is fine in terms of marketing and branding. So if you look at high-end cars, Porsches, Maseratis, etc., or it could be that in other ways you're going to market to a mass market, but you target slightly, like diet drinks in a soda market, or even certain types of waters in a certain soda market, but for health-conscious purchasers or consumers. So relating this chapter to what you're doing in the class, you're putting together a marketing plan for your company. And as a team, you and your classmates are working on things like who is it that's a target market. You're looking at their current marketing strategies and what you think they're doing. You're doing an analysis of their internal and external factors, but then you also want to think about segmentation. And when you come up with new strategies for your company, because that's part of your signature assignment and final project for this class, think about the segments that would be a possibility for your product and for your organization, and think about ways if you could branch out their segmentation into a different segment and how you would appeal to that particular group. So does this organization already do customized mass marketing? Do they have a niche market that they sell to? Those are all types of things that you're going to find out by doing your situational analysis. Now, this slide's pretty hard to see, but this is kind of a graphic based on what we just talked about. What are the different types of ways that organizations would segment their market? And in my case, when we were selling our products, we were looking at hospitals in certain sizes that would want to purchase our products. So you can purchase lists of hospitals that would mean that those would be targets for our sales reps around the country. You can also understand that maybe there are certain niche markets within those hospital segments that are only going to be doing outpatient testing. So in that case, maybe drug testing is a great thing to put into a satellite laboratory or to a satellite clinic. So there were lots of ways that we kind of looked at different segments, and we had to determine the profitability of those different segments based on the product they would purchase and the volumes that we thought that they would purchase over time. There's something called the VALS characteristic, or VALS data that you can purchase that has to do with values and lifestyles of customers. And in the back of your chapter at the end, it shows the link to VALS. So you and your team might want to focus on that if you want to look into segmentation for your particular company that you've chosen. This is I think a chart that I even referred to in a previous presentation, but this has to do with ways that organizations would do product positioning. And product positioning is actually a key part of segmentation, because you're looking at your product with respect to different competitors in the market and different even features that your users would have, or behaviors that your users would have. So in this case, this chart is showing how an organization or a company that sells a certain type of milk drink would want to reposition it away from, say, traditional children's drinking it to something that could be branded as being more healthy that adults would use. And I think it's next week, you guys are going to be creating your own positioning map with your product, with sparkling ice, an article that I give you where you're going to read about this particular drink and you're going to create your own positioning maps. But when I was in marketing, we really had to characterize how the product I was marketing, how it was positioned against competitors. And we didn't have the same sort of tools for creating a positioning map like you guys have, but I suggest you do it for your final project. Take a look at who the competitors are, take a look at some features, and create a market position map for your product. And you're going to do it in the assignment with a drink, and you can create your own product positioning map. There's no right or wrong way to do this. It's just a way for visually for you as a marketer to see how does my product stack up against other products. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in a future video that I record for you. But this is a key thing that organizations do when they're looking at segmentation, targeting certain markets, and then how they're positioned. So we will pick up with another chapter, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.